Good afternoon, everybody. It's January 17th. It's a Wednesday in 2024. Michael K., Don LaGreca, and Peter Rosenberg with you.
Yeah.
We're here until 6:30. Got a lot of stuff to do, a lot of stuff to talk about. Superbox Bonanza,
Sure.
the whole deal. We're ready. Snow somewhat cleared. It's nice. It's beautiful.
Oh, there was no delayed opening, so get the kids out of the house. They got to be at school between 8:20
We had a
and
delayed
8:40,
opening.
so it's like 8:15. We should have, because basically my wife's car was an ice cube. They had to go in through the one door that opened, which is the driver's side door, and it was crazy cold.
Don, if you would clear out your garage and put the car in the garage.
Why do you make it seem like it's a my problem?
I mean, you're the one who shovels, so you should clean out the garage.
No, but no, it's not about. It's like he's never been married.
Go ahead, take a story, Tom.
If Nancy went on vacation, let's say if we work together and get Nancy and Jody to go to the Florida Keys for a week.
Never would happen. Go ahead.
All right, I would. There'd be two dumpsters in my driveway, and I'd.
Why can't you do that with Nancy there? She'll beat you up.
You know what?
No, she would say no. That's mine. I don't want you to throw it out. But I would test the waters and say I'd throw it out, and she wouldn't notice it was gone. But once you notice it's there, now you got to keep it.
It's very.
I love throwing stuff away. It arouses me almost. That's how much I love throwing stuff out.
Your dynamic there is very interesting because more often than not, I feel like it's the dudes who keep stuff, want all their old high school trophies and jerseys.
That's how our house is, Peter. Jody throws away everything.
Yeah, like my brother's wife, if my brother turns around, everything will be gone. But my mom is a big thrower-outer. In fact, I don't think she wants to get her hopes up yet, but I told her that in 2 weeks I'm attempting to take the records out of my childhood bedroom. It's a big deal in the Rosenberg
There's
house.
a lot of things that I keep that other people may deem as worthless, but I know they exist. I know where they are.
But the car should be in the garage, so there's no ice.
But both of them should be.
Wow.
You have is it full
to the
brim?
Yeah. I mean, it's like a path that we get through to get into the house.
Oh, boy. So basically you have two storage units. It's called your garage. And
Don said that he has old CVS bags in there.
Old CVS
with
bags?
receipts and everything?
Oh, boy. Don?
The kids have really just taken, a lot of it's like pool stuff and things that we put there, and tools. I have some tools.
So real quick, if Nancy offered you, she said, this weekend, I'm going to offer, give me the sex music, please. She said, I'm going to offer you something that's really going to turn you on.
I love throwing stuff away. It arouses me almost.
And she said, all I want to do is give you a full 48 hours of the two of us in the garage clearing it out. I will approve. Would you do it in a heartbeat?
It would. I'm going to be honest. This is not hyperbole. It would be the equal to the greatest hall pass that you could give me.
That's how excited you'd be just to throw out.
Yes. It would be like a weekend with Kate Beckinsale.
You hear that, Michael?
I would take cleaning out the garage over a weekend with Kate Beckinsale.
This is leading up because I'm going to warn all of our listeners because a lot of people are picking up their children at this time. Today's Would You Wednesday is very much sexually tinged.
Oh, hello.
No, this is like over the top. I really went over the top. So if you have children in the car, might be time to turn the show off at 3:45. I hate to say that.
Perfect. Yeah. So wait, just a quick time at 3:45.
Yeah, and then come on back.
Right.
And I know most of the guys and the gals are listening. They're not going to turn it off, even though the kids are there. But they're forewarned.
God. So you're staying away from death and leaning into sex.
I don't think there's any death on today's list.
Wow, you're choosing sex over death.
Yeah.
You don't see that every day.
All right, so today the Mets have announced the dates for the Gooden and Strawberry number retirement.
There you go. You know what?
Dwight Gooden's 16 will be retired on April 14th, and Darrell's 18 will be retired on June 1st. Now, Don and Peter seem to think it's a slam dunk. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than you're giving it credit for.
How?
Okay, I'll tell you how. Doc Gooden for 3 years was about as great a pitcher as we've ever seen. You look at the rest of his Met career, obviously tinged with the drug problems and things like that, and I think his arm was hurt. It was pedestrian. He was not great after 88. In fact, he wasn't great after 86. 84, amazing. 85, amazing. 86, good. And then he started to drop off. Now, Darryl was really good the whole time, but he left to be a free agent to go to the Dodgers. Now, it's difficult for me to even bring this stuff up. Darryl Strawberry was at my wedding. We're actually very close friends, and I'm very close friends with Dwight Gooden. But I don't think it's as much of a slam dunk. And, you know, what Peter and Don always argue with me, and they could say it right now, is what the fans want. I am of the belief, and this is where we always argue about this, it's not what the fans want, in my opinion. Numbers get retired because of unparalleled excellence.
No. Well, who made that
look
rule?
at the numbers that are retired around sports. It's unparalleled excellence.
No. Don't. Then why is Ken Danico's number retired by the Devils? Why is Casey Stengel's number retired
because
by the Mets?
Stengel essentially started the Mets. He laid the groundwork.
Well, somebody was going to start it. Somebody was going to manage that team.
But he gave them relevance because he was a world champion with the Yankees.
Right. Well, now you're talking about something there. All right.
Before we get into the argument about that, because I know us, and I'm going to look forward to it, enjoy it. We're going to have this argument about what the criteria should be all day long. But I want to push back on something Michael said statistically. Considering he gave you an 85, one of the great pitching seasons of all time, and a World Series championship. I'm sorry, in 86. The incredible year in 85, 86 still a great year, plus the championship. But after those years, Michael, what you just referred to as pedestrian, those are numbers that if the Yankees right now could grab them, he'd immediately be the second or third pitcher in the rotation.
Sport now, but go ahead, give me the numbers.
I mean, after 86, he goes in 87. He's 15-7 with a 3.21 ERA. In 88, he's 18-9 with a 3.19 ERA. In 89, he's injured some. He's 9-4, 2.89 ERA. In 90, still with the Mets, he's 19-7, 3.83 ERA.
Fourth in the Cy Young.
In 91, he's 13-7, 3.60 ERA. I mean, it really doesn't fall off a cliff until 92, 93, where his ERA is not horrible. It's in the mid-threes, but he's
I'm probably willing to say pedestrian. Maybe I set such a high bar because of 84 and 85 that the other things look pedestrian. They're not pedestrian when you look at them from a broad scope. So I take that word back.
But you're still talking about a Met for 11 years. There was 157 in 85. That's a 649 win percentage with a 3.10 earned run average. That's great. That's great numbers.
I mean, Don, I think it's closer to having an argument about Hall of Fame than it is about number retirement. I don't think there's even a conversation to have about number retirement.
We dismiss that, but like he talks about excellence. Well, I just think what you mean to the franchise. Ken Danico meant a lot to the franchise. He was an original Devil, played his entire career there, won 3 Stanley Cups. The fans loved him. He was the face of the franchise in a lot of ways. Good with the community. They retired his number. Casey Stengel gave the Mets relevance when they were losing 120 games in their first year, so you retire his number. Right? There's just certain cachet. I'm sorry, Doc and Darryl are a thing, Michael. That's a thing. And they were the biggest athletes for about a 5-year period in New York, period. You know, you go from 84 through 88, Michael, they were as big athletes as anybody.
So let me ask you this. Why hesitate until 2023? What was the reluctance?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because the Wilpons didn't know what they were doing. That's number one. And number two, I think because of their checkered past. But you take a look at that past. Drug addiction is aged differently. Back in the 80s, you were a felon, you were evil, you were a bad person if you were a drug addict. I think we look back now and realize that, you know what, it's a disease. And, yeah, sometimes bad guys are drug addicts, but sometimes good guys get dragged down by drugs as well. Is it really that criminal activity that we thrust upon people that were addicted to cocaine back in the 80s? You saw the way Darryl has got up from it. He's been able to change his life and many other people's lives around because of it. And Doc hasn't necessarily, but I think we look back and I think more people feel bad for what he went through than really think he was an evil, bad guy. So I think those have aged better for them. I mean, is that fair, Peter? Like, I think you were looked upon as a criminal in the 80s if you did coke.
Yep.
And now I think we realize that it might be more of a problem, more of a disease that you can feel sorry for. And the way Strawberry's turned his life around, well, it's really difficult to deny.
Strawberry's had the stronger recovery, right? But even Doc, the way Doc has continuously worked at it and really, we just tried and done a really good job turning his life into being an upstanding guy. They both have only helped their case as time has gone on. And then just the fact that when you go, if you were to go to a Mets event, like some sort of a viewing party of a Mets game, they're playing an important game, you have a viewing party. I don't think that there's anyone who would get a bigger reaction walking in than the two of them. And I know Michael doesn't think that's the deciding factor, but if it's on the line and it's close with regard to how their contributions on the field were, how do you not put it over the edge when their numbers are so popular in the uniform and they're so beloved?
Both of them. I think it's something that is going to mean a lot to both of them. But let me throw this at Don, the Met fan. Does it bother you that Darryl went on to win 3 championships with the Yankees and Doc threw a no-hitter and won a championship with the Yankees?
Maybe. It bothers me, but I'm not going to take it out on them. That doesn't make them bad. They were Mets. All right? And to Peter's point, Doc has not thrown a pitch for the New York Mets. This will be the 30th anniversary of the last time he pitched for the Mets, 1994. Darryl Strawberry hasn't played for the Mets since 1990. That's 34 years ago. And you could make the case they're still 2 of the most relevant names in the history of that franchise.
To people of a certain age like you. I agree.
Well, I'm 55 years old for a franchise that's been around since, for what, 62 years? All right, so I started following the Mets that I can remember like in 1976. So that's the overwhelming majority of the time that they've been in existence. And really, it started in 69, right? Everything that happened before then, they were an embarrassment finishing under 500. So, but you don't think a guy like Howie Rose, who's been a fan of the team from the second that they started there, wouldn't put Doc and Darryl in the top 5 most meaningful athletes in the history of that franchise? They're right there. They may not be the player that Tom Seaver was or Mike Piazza was. They're not in the Hall of Fame. But as far as what they meant to the franchise, they're right there. They are. And you can't compare it to other franchises. All right, the Yankees have a bunch of championships. They've set a higher bar. Good for them. But from a Mets standpoint, you can't think Mets without having a conversation about Doc and Darryl. We're just mentioning their first names, and people know who they are. Peter grew up in Chevy Chase, Maryland. I say Doc and Darryl. He knows who we're talking about. So let me ask you
this. Why is Gary Carter not?
Well, Gary Carter should be. I don't know. They finally have an owner that gets it, that doesn't have their head up the Dodgers' ass, that now maybe we actually might be able to get some of these guys' number retired. Absolutely, Gary. But even bigger than Gary, because Gary established himself as a Hall of Fame player with the Montreal Expos.
That's what I was going to say.
Went into the Hall of Fame, with the credentials from what he was able to accomplish.
But in terms of relevancy, they don't win that World Series without Gary Carter.
Well, listen, they don't win it without Keith. They don't win it with a lot of guys, Michael. Ray Knight was the MVP of the World Series. I wouldn't dream of retiring.
But would you dream? Here's the cold, hard facts about Carter, and I hate to say it. I don't want to sound callous. You have these number ceremonies to sell tickets. Gary's no longer with us, so there's no urgency to do it right away. Doc and Darryl, thank God, are with us, so it will sell tickets on those dates.
It will happen. But, listen, Keith Hernandez was a better Met than probably Doc and Darryl, considering how long he's been there, what he's been able to accomplish.
He wasn't a better player than Darryl.
But Darryl was, Darryl didn't spend a lot of things. He spent 8 years here. But the point is, it's not even about comparing the back of their baseball cards. It's just talking about what a big thing they are. And Gary might be on the outside looking in when you talk about Keith and you talk about Doc and you talk about Darryl. But I would have no problem
He can't be on the back, the outside looking in when you retired. Willie Mays had no relevancy to the Mets. None. He was Joan Payson's favorite player. I get it, but does he deserve to have number 24 retired by the Mets? No.
I know, but I think because there are no New York Giants anymore, and there are a lot of Giant fans that became Met fans, and some supposed promise that Joan Payson had made to Willie, that was more ceremonial. Willie didn't make it to he made a statement.
He wasn't
90s. There. It was kind of part. it is, and he's out in San Francisco, so he wasn't going to make the trip. But it just shows you, see, you're getting too caught up in the numbers. Sometimes it just makes sense.
All right, so let me flip something to the Bronx, if I can. Number 13, should it be retired? 2 MVPs, a World Series. Should it be retired? Now, Doc and Darryl certainly has his bad moments. He was suspended for a year while he was at the Yankees. Does it deserve to be retired? Because he had a very long career with the Yankees.
I would have no problem if the Yankees decided to retire it. And I can't speak from a Yankee fan base because I'm not a Yankee fan. But I was on this radio station for pretty much all of the time he was a Yankee.
Yep.
All of it. I was on ESPN for all of it. He became a Yankee. I was doing a show at the Daytona 500 when it came down. A show on ESPN. But he wasn't loved by Yankee fans. He was a pariah for a lot of that. Fans killing him for not winning the championship. I mean, he was a polarizing figure. So I don't know if he's beloved, but the numbers say, yeah. I mean, he
See, but that's where you lose me. Let's say the reason that Alex take away the suspension, because you're even talking about before the suspension. He wasn't loved for one reason. He wasn't Derek Jeter, not because he wasn't great, but he's one of the greatest players who ever lived.
Right. And his number deserves to be retired, and I think it's aged pretty well, where even after he sued the team and all the suspensions and embarrassment, time has passed. I think it's aged well enough where his number 13 could be retired. But I don't know, are Yankee fans clamoring
No, they clamored for Paul.
Right, they clamored for Paul because they loved Paul. Now, Paul was like half the player that Alex Rodriguez was, but Paul was the warrior, and the fans adored and loved him, and there was an outcry to have his number retired. I don't know if there's an outcry to have number 13 retired, and I bet you if they did decide to retire it, we'd get a ton of phone calls from Yankee fans upset that it was retired.
Well, the fact that the Yankees gave the number to Joey Gallo kind of tells you they're not retiring, right. And I think the fact, almost suing the team is not forgotten.
But this is not a Hall of Fame. This is part where the fans should have a say, because let's face it, Michael, we have these ceremonies because the Mets probably know that they're not guaranteed to be a playoff team next year, and they want to make sure that there's at least 2 dates that building is going to be sold out. That's why a lot of franchises retire numbers, to kind of get a moment. But the fans also have a say, because I think that this is something they're a part of, because it changes from franchise to franchise. Some franchises, you got to be in the Hall of Fame in order to get your number retired. For some franchises, they'll do it at the drop of a hat. But for any Met fan to say that Doc and Darryl do not deserve to have their numbers retired, I would seriously fight them because of the significance that they had. I got to be honest with you, for a Met fan, way more significance than even Mike Piazza had. Mike Piazza changed the franchise, turned it around, but he didn't win a championship.
But he took him to one.
He was a great player, but he was also a great player before he got here, and then he left and continued to add to his numbers. So I'm not saying Mike Piazza didn't deserve to have his number retired, but for a lifelong Met fan, Doc and Darryl resonate way more for me than Mike Piazza does. And I also believe that David Wright's number should be retired at some point as well.
But I essentially agree with you. I'm thrilled for Doc. I'm thrilled for Darryl. I don't think it's much of a slam dunk as you say, but I'm glad they're getting it, and they probably do deserve it. But I do disagree with you that if a player is loved by fans, he should have his number retired. It's got to be a combination of both, Don. It's got to be exactly. You have to be a great player.
But I don't even know if you have to be a great player. The one guy that you're
telling me is Danico, and that's almost like a freakish difference. What did he play? 17 years there?
Yeah. But it's got to be a thing. It's hard to articulate the guys that deserve it and the guys that don't. You have to be like a fan of the team and understand the significance. Off the air, you had mentioned about how beloved, and he was, right. Brett Gardner was. But to me, that was never a thing.
He doesn't rise to the level.
Brett Gardner has disappeared, right? If he came back for Old Timers Day, he would get one of the biggest ovations of anybody on the field. He would.
Right. But it's hard to explain. It doesn't feel like it's a thing.
Part of that ovation almost, though, is in that he's not the kind of guy who gets recognized in the big way. So you love seeing him because he's that dude. But he's not of the ilk. I mean, he's not even close to the level of the guys we're talking about.
It's almost like describing the it factor, right? It's just describing what you mean to a franchise. And yeah, let's face it, the Mets are different than a lot of other teams because they've only got 2 championships. They haven't been around as long as the Yankees or as long as the New York Giants or the Dodgers and all that. So it's a little bit different in that sense. But it just, if you're a fan, you get it. You know.
For example, it's not going to happen. But if you were to put play-wise, stats-wise, wouldn't make sense. But in terms of being that guy, Don, I think you'll agree. I don't think anyone would bat an eye if the Knicks put number 3 up in the rafters because of the level of love for John Starks. He is that kind of dude for the team. He was that important. Now, imagine had the Knicks won a championship with Starks in his prime. You think it would have been crazy to put Starks' number up?
It wouldn't be crazy, but it would be a stretch.
It would be a stretch, but because he's so loved by the fans. So that's how I kind of see. And Daryl and Doc, by the way, are on a whole different level than that. But I'm saying, even when you look at the Danicos of the world, you can look at a team and find the guys who don't have the numbers, but they have the it factor. And for whatever reason, Gardner was a loved player by the fans, but he's just below that threshold of igniting the fan base the way a Starks does.
One thing that you also have to take into consideration with the Mets, this doesn't really resonate because before Keith and Willie and now Doc and Daryl, it was essentially, and Kuzman, it was essentially Tom Seaver and Casey Stengel, right? And Gil Hodges.
Yeah.
So if you're the Knicks, you can't put John Starks up there next to Walt Frazier and Earl Monroe and Dave DeBusschere and Bill Bradley. You've set a level of, okay, these are the guys whose numbers are retired. The Mets didn't have that level. The Yankees have that level. And, I mean, that's why it was so tough for them to finally, okay, we're going to retire O'Neal. But O'Neal won 4 championships. And when you say not half the player, I think that's a little strong, Don. You look at O'Neal's numbers. If he had just played with the Yankees his whole career, not the Reds, he might be in the Hall of Fame. So his numbers with the Yankees were unbelievable. So, I mean, you're setting a paradigm. Okay, we can't cross it. The Mets have set a different paradigm now.
Yeah, but even in that paradigm, how do you not give Doc and Daryl?
I agree. I mean,
Strawberry every year except his rookie year when he won Rookie of the Year. By the way, he was an all-star. Doc, the same thing. Those first 3 years, and also like what he meant because you were here in New York, Michael, and I think it was probably before you started in the business. Like when was your first gig out of college?
I was with the Post in 82 or 83, but I mean, I wasn't writing baseball.
Right. So 1984, you were a fan just like I was, and you weren't a Met fan, but you understood the significance of Doc Gooden pitching in 1984. I mean, we talk about Harvey Day and DeGrom. It was on a different level. People were shutting down to go and watch Doc pitch, and then he wins Rookie of the Year, and then the next year lights out one of the greatest performances we've seen any pitcher in New York ever have to win the Cy Young, and then he's a part of a championship team in 85, in 86. To hit the way that he did to start a career, unbelievable. Same thing with Strawberry. Now, it's a soap opera. There were a lot of ups and downs, and it ended poorly for both. I didn't like the way it went down with Strawberry, where he's talking in 1988. I think somebody was ghostwriting for him. He had an article, I forget what paper it was in, during the 88 playoff run, where he's fantasizing about playing for the Dodgers and going home. I didn't like the way that went, and certainly everything that happened to Doc with the injuries and the
not
arm
showing
abuse
up at the parade,
certainly the drug abuse. Yeah, in 86, absolutely. But it's just part of, for lack of a better word, the charm of those two. And it was so significant because all the Mets were 69. And then the 70s, or outside of 73's run to the World Series, Michael, some of the worst baseball outside of when they first started happened in those mid to late 70s. Talk about just an irrelevant baseball team, 3,000 people going to the ballpark, and then the buzz around Strawberry's coming. Strawberry's going to come, and he's going to have an impact, and he immediately made an impact. And then Doc immediately made an impact to where a lot of younger Yankee fans aren't going to believe this. The Mets own this town. They were the story for about a 3-4 year period in sports because of those two. And to not have their number retired was ridiculous. So I would fight for them more so than I'd ever even fight for Gary. And I loved Gary. And Gary, from the back of the baseball card, and they don't win that World Series in '86 without him. And I remember when he came in and he had a home run to win on opening day against the Cardinals. But Doc and Darryl just hit different, and and those numbers deserve to be retired as much as any Met number.
All right, we will
is
take
retired.
your phone calls on this. It's the ESPN New York Superbox Bonanza 5. We're giving away over $10,000 in cash and prizes. All qualifiers will get a $25 Fanatics gift card and a chance of one of 10 Superbox prizes. Get your box for the big game by listening tomorrow morning, every morning, to DPHO in Rothenberg, and every afternoon to Barton Hahn and this show. This year's big game payouts are $500 in the first and third quarters, $1,000 at halftime, and a final score payout of $2,000. All brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey and the brand new Tullamore Dew Honey. For full contest details, go to superboxbonanza.com. New year, new ride. Shop 300 plus. It's game time, brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey. The Knicks are hosting the Rockets tonight at the Garden. Coverage begins at 7 right here on 98.7 ESPN. And the Nets are in Portland at 10, and the Devils take on the Canadians in Jersey at 7. That's game time, brought to you by Tullamore Dew Irish Whiskey, because when it's game time, it's Tully time. Tullamore Dew, the original triple distilled, triple blended, and triple cask matured Irish whiskey. Be sure to grab a Tullamore Dew or try the brand new Tullamore Dew Honey during tonight's action. Glasses up to enjoying Tullamore Dew responsibly. 1-800-919-3776. A very provocative Would You Wednesday coming up in our next segment.
And he means sex. He's talking sexual.
It's provocative. Let's leave it at that.
Okay.
All right. Let's go to the phones. 1-800-919-3776. And we'll start her off with the lovely and talented Danny from Long Island.
Tried to call in yesterday for Steeler autopsy, but I couldn't get through. So,
busy show.
Busy show. They played well. They died with their boots on. And now we see what happens next season. It is what it is. Tiny Hands is going to come back. He's going to be the starting quarterback.
You know that the scratch-off commercial with the guy that invented all these hands to help him?
Yeah, the little hand that comes out.
Hand. I think of you every time I see it. I think of the Steelers.
It's actually not tiny hands. Apparently, it has tiny eyes because he doesn't see people that are open. So
you think he's going to start over Mason Rudolph? Rudolph didn't play that poorly.
Rudolph, first of all, Mason Rudolph has started, I believe, a total of 11 games. He's about 7-3. He played. If I told you, if he was a rookie quarterback in his 10th grade on the road in that environment, playing as what he did, you would say that's your starting quarterback. But the way the NFL is with you got to be a first-round draft pick. You got to be this. You got to be that. He's only 2 years older than Tiny Hands because Tiny Hands stayed in college till he was 24.
Mason was so disrespectful. I can't. This is so disrespectful.
But you know what? The scout said he's got tiny hands.
I know, but he's still an NFL quarterback.
You know, I think when you say tiny hands, the Kristen Wiig character on Saturday Night Live.
It's hard.
And the Lawrence
let me talk about the Mets. Let me talk about this, the topic du jour. In my life, the night before the Mets had the 86 parade, somebody called me and asked me if I was going to go, and I infamously replied, I'll go to the next one. I am getting ready to collect Social Security in 2 years. Okay, I am done with any kind of a glorifying or remembering something that happened before I had facial hair. I mean, enough. I mean, they both were wonderful players. They both had talent. They both. I'm not either adding or removing their problems to their thing. But it's so long ago. Let me ask you a question. Again, let's go back to the old Ed Kranepool rant. Do we have anybody on that wall who spent their entire? They waited till Tom Seaver was in the ground. They waited till Kuzman was about 80 years old. How about Buddy Harrelson, who just passed away? The guy was involved in the organization for about 30 years, and he became a fixture in Long Island youth baseball and was a manager of the Ducks, and they retired his number. I mean, I know he wasn't a great player compared to those two guys, but I'm done with anything to do with the 86 Mets. For the love of God, can we win a World Series and talk about retiring someone who didn't win a World Series when Reagan was president?
But listen, I understand all these things are money grabs, but you have something different at play here. You finally have an owner that gets it. I mean, the Wilpons, I don't know what they were thinking. Were they afraid, Michael, that they were going to get backlash because of their drug problems?
I don't think they liked them both.
Well, then that's a bad job out of them, because I don't care how you feel about them personally. If you cared about this franchise at all, you understood them. So they're righting a wrong here. I get what Danny's saying. It does seem ridiculous how long we've had to hold on to the 86 team because we don't have any other team to hold on to. But to me, I look at this as righting a wrong, not trying to dig up the past because the present is so depressing. They should have done this, Michael, 15, 20 years ago.
He brought up the Mets equivalent. The Mets equivalent to Ken Danico. Why isn't Ed Kranepool's number retired? Lifetime Met. From New York, from the Bronx.
Because,
why?
Well, honestly, because he had a falling out with the organization. Now, is it better now? I mean, I read his book. It's different ownership. All those guys are gone now. But he had a real issue with the Mets because they didn't appreciate their past at all. And they ticked a lot of people off. And that's one of the reasons why Cohen brought back Old Timers Day, because he wanted to mend all those fences. So I appreciate that. That's why I can live with that. So I get what Danny's saying, that it does feel like how long are we going to hold on to 86? It's insulting after a while. But this should have been done 20 years ago. And for whatever reason, it wasn't done. So let's right that wrong, and now we can officially move on. And I think Gary has to be included in that too. I don't know why. You can't tell me anybody had a falling out with Gary. So why are we waiting so long for 8 to be retired?
Don't know. I don't know that. Bobby in Basking Ridge. Bobby.
Hey, guys, thanks for taking the call.
You got it. What's up?
I'm a Devils and a Yankees fan, so the conversation about, like, Danico's number of retirement against Gardner's number of retirement kind of displays the semantics of this conversation. I think Danico's number should be retired and Gardner shouldn't, so that's kind of where you get into the gray area.
Well, also, Danico won 3 cups, Bobby.
Right, I'm correct. Danico had more success than Gardner. Gardner, I think, had the World Series in 2009 and one All-Star game. But in terms of being beloved by the fans, there's no way to retroactively do this, but my whole take on retired numbers, like I said, I'm a Yankee fan. I think the Yankees have too many retired numbers. What do you guys think about the way that European soccer does it? They don't retire numbers. When you play for a team, that shirt number, you carry on the legacy of the number. And you could have the Ring of Honor. You could still have all the numbers out in left field being like, these are our greatest players. These are the guys. But you wouldn't have the argument about, is this guy worthy of the number of retirement? Why isn't that guy's number retired? You would just be able to have the legacy of all of your players and still display it without the pinnacle of taking them out of circulation.
I like what you're saying. Yeah. I like what you're selling. It's rational, and the Yankees are going to run into a problem. I don't know when it's going to be, if it's going to be in 30 years or 40 years, but they're giving out 2 numbers to players in spring training. I mean, to me, the numbers that should never, ever be worn again in Yankee history, ever be worn again, Ruth, Gehrig, DiMaggio, Mantle, and Berra. Those are the 5. Everybody else is unbelievable players. Unbelievable. Whitey Ford, all the guys on the 4 championship teams. All of them. But they should be honored in a different way. You shouldn't have 30 retired. Look what the Giants do, right? If you look at the Giants, I didn't even realize it was this many, Don. Maybe you did. They have 14 retired numbers, but they have 50 members in the Ring of Honor. The Giants have not retired Justin Tuck or Carl Banks' number, but they're both in the Ring of Honor. So there are a lot of guys on that Yankee wall that should be in a quote-unquote Ring of Honor, and that number should still be in circulation.
Now, football did it out of necessity because up until recently, numbers represented positions. So, I mean, you couldn't run out of 50s and be able to field any linebackers. Right. But now it's changed and you can wear any number that you want. But they came out of necessity. But it's getting to the point with the Yankees. You've got 99 options. And how many retired numbers do they have?
Oh, boy, it's got to be 20.
Yeah, so you start to run out of numbers, Michael. It gets ridiculous. But going to a Ring of Honor in baseball, I'd have no problem with that if they decided to. At some point, Michael, we'll be long gone, and maybe our kids too, but if baseball and sports lives on for the next 100 years, they're going to have to recycle them. They're going to have no choice. They're going to run out of numbers.
I think after we're gone, sports will be dead as we know it.
You think so?
I mean?
Like the day the last one of us dies?
Yeah, well, how is there sport? That's the day the music dies. You know what I mean?
You know what? I hear you. Steven in Manhattan.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Happy New Year. Just don't tell Larry David. I know it's the 70s.
It definitely is.
So I was 50, 86. I'm 55, so I've watched the Mets my whole life. I was at the World Series. My son just turned 19. He didn't have the guts to call, but his birthday was the other day, so happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
But I want to make an easy point. And, Michael, I love you. I'm a little shocked at your take here. But there's one thing very simple. So I called my son. He's just turned 19. Who are the top 5 Mets of all time? He's a big Met fan now. Just wearing the DeGrom jersey the year before he left. He named, in order, Seaver. He did say Piazza, a little, which is fine, obviously, but, a little earlier bias. Third, no question, he said Darryl. Fourth, he said David Wright. Again, a little bit more bias. And then fifth, he said Darryl third, if I said that wrong. Then, like I said, Wright, and then Doc.
Well, I mean, I don't know what you disagree with me. I just said I don't know if it's as clear cut as everybody's making it out to be because of the way their careers ended with the Mets and they went on to win a championship with the Yankees. But at the end, I agree their numbers should be retired, and I agree with your son's top 5. Don't you, Don?
Yes, I got no problem with it, but I guess the reason I think I just don't understand why there would be any doubt.
Can I ask you one thing,
It's almost like not
Don?
acknowledging that they weren't a thing. Yes.
So in 15 years. You going to retire DeGrom's number? He won, 2 Cy Youngs, right, with them?
Yeah.
Is he going to retire his number? One of the greatest pitchers who ever lived those 2 years.
I get it, but you know what? Like you said, the way it ended, kind of the way Doc ended, although he would deny he didn't want to be here.
But they didn't win.
And...
Yeah, winning's big.
Well, they didn't win with Piazza.
The only guy on the wall for the Yankees that never won is Mattingly.
That's the only
guy.
one. So the winning part's a huge piece of it.
But they didn't win with Piazza.
That's true.
They had no problem. I wouldn't have a problem with it. But again,
win with Wright.
I just don't know how the fans feel about it. And it's interesting you bring up DeGrom. As big as DeGrom was, and I know I'm talking to a lot of younger fans that aren't going to be able to get this. It was nothing compared to when Doc pitched.
No, I wouldn't say nothing. I mean, Doc was amazing, but DeGrom starts were occasions.
I know, but there was just
something.
Listen, it was
not as big as Harvey.
Yeah, but there's something. There was just something about Doc. Now, am I biased because I'm a Met fan? And that was also in 1984. I was 16 years old, so maybe it hit differently for me because I was so young and it was the first time any of my teams were actually really good, and I was excited about it. But there was just and sports were different too. It wasn't as fragmented. Not every game was on television, right? But it just felt like the whole world stopped when Doc pitched.
Would You Wednesday's coming up. If you have kids in the car, you might want to turn it off for 10 minutes.
Well,
because it's somewhat sexually tinged.
You know what?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Griffin. Turn off the radio for 10 minutes.
Come on.
DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. This is awful news. Remember, the Golden State game against Toronto was postponed tonight because their assistant coach, Dejan Milojevic, was in the hospital. He had an incident at a team dinner last night while he ended up dying of a heart attack at the age of 46, the team announced. So that's just, not in Toronto, it was in Utah, I'm sorry. 46, Don, he goes to dinner, never thinks that his life is going to end, and the team was so shaken up, they postponed the game, and I don't blame them.
Of course. I mean, you don't want to speculate, but it was something like a heart attack.
It was a heart attack, they said.
Yeah, there was. Yeah. Okay, so I figured that was, and even 46, it's so young, terrible. I don't know if he already had a heart condition or just kind of came out of nowhere, but I can understand the players not wanting to play after that.
And a guy, from what I've read, absolutely beloved in the international basketball community, so gone way too soon. 46 years old, having dinner with the team. So not only if they really cared about the guy, which they obviously did, but they saw it happen, which is just dreadful. So awful. Condolences to Golden State and to his family. That's just terrible. More mundane things. The Yankees officially announced that the Marcus Stroman deal is now been completed. 2 years, $37 million. They will have a Zoom press conference tomorrow at 3 and at 4. I believe that Stroman's at 3, and I think that Cashman is at 4. So, we talked about this a lot last week. He had to pass a physical for it to be official, so he obviously did that. And it's a 2-year deal. And if in the second year of the deal he pitches over 140 innings, the third year kicks in as well. So a lot of baseball projection sites, right? They felt that he was going to get a 3-year, $66 million deal. And he ends up signing a 2-year, $37 million deal with the Yankees. Now, part of that is, from what I've heard, he really wanted to play for the Yankees. He was upset when the Blue Jays didn't trade him to the Yankees, ended up trading him to the Mets. He got upset when the GM of the Yankees said that he couldn't make the rotation in the postseason, wasn't going to be a difference maker, so he angrily struck back at him. He has been a lot less active on social media since July. He had a bad second half with the Cubs. He had a great first half. He opted out of the final year of his contract, which was going to pay him $21 million. So he ends up taking a pay cut of $2.5 million for this year to play for the Yankees. But, I've been reading, we're going to talk about this on the Yankee Hot Stove tonight on Yes. And it wasn't so much that he was active on social media, and, he's a very demonstrative on the field. But a lot of people look at what they call Zip's projection. So Zips is pessimistic that he's going to have a great year. He walks a lot of batters, and they say that his ground ball rate is not what it should be. And if he doesn't have a great ground ball rate, he's going to have a lot of home runs given up. So Zips projects for Marcus Stroman in 2024 to go 9-9 with a 4.17 ERA, 25 starts. Pitching 138 innings, 133 hits, 44 walks, 110 strikeouts, a WAR of 2. In 2025, they project him to be 8-8, 4.31. 22 starts, 123 innings, 122 hits, 16 home runs, 41 walks, 96 strikeouts. His ERA would be below average. His WAR would be 1.4. I think that if he returns to his ground ball rate, the Yankee Stadium is the place for him.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a fly ball pitcher at Yankee Stadium, even a small bit of gust of wind is going to hit the ball into the seats. So he's got to be able to keep the ball down, which is his specialty. I think if he stays healthy, I think that he'll be good enough that he will warrant the $18.5 million. I really do. The outside noise is the outside noise. That's for the Yankees to deal with. They've taken on a little bit of a risk with Verdugo, who didn't get along with Cora. They've taken on a little bit of a risk with Stroman. I don't think his social media activity is going to anger anybody in the room. And if the Yankees are able to get over what he said about them, then that's fine. I mean, they're the ones that signed him. All he has to do, Don, is give them about 28 starts. Now, I think it would be best if he's the fourth starter rather than the second or third. And I keep reading, the Yankees could be done with getting a starting pitcher. They'll probably get another reliever. Well, if they're done with getting a starting pitcher, you're taking some risks. Clark Schmidt is one of your top 5. Rodon should be your number 2, and you're expecting him to be a number 2. Nestor Cortez, you're expecting him to come back from a shoulder injury that you hope has been resolved from rest. So that behind Garrett Cole, if they all come up positive, right, then you'd say that's pretty good starting 5. But what's the likelihood of them all coming up positive? I think they need one more starter, and you turn Schmidt into a swingman. But Stroman, for the money they paid, I don't think it's a terrible signing. Last year, 10-9, 3.95. That would be the second best pitcher on the Yankee staff.
Yeah, I mean, it's all relative, right? I mean, that's not what you want, but I think you see potential. He's a Gold Glove fielder.
Yep.
Guy wants to be here. So, see, that to me balances out any of the noise. Like, the noise of him going after Yankee fans, going after the Yankees, came from a place of, hey, I want to be a Yankee, and your general manager said I wasn't good enough. And now your general manager thinks I'm good enough. This is where I want to be. I think the Yankee fans will take to him as long as he pitches well. And you can give me the zip or whatever the analytics say. I mean, what's their track record? How accurate are those numbers compared to other times that they've predicted what's going to happen over the next couple of years? Guy works hard, feels his position well, wants to be a Yankee. It's worth the shot. It's not a ton of money when you consider what other pitchers are making that maybe don't even have the resume that he has. He's still a younger player. I like the signing a lot. I don't think there's going to be any noise. You're right. I just looked it up. He hasn't tweeted since July.
But he did send out some Instagram all positive about the Yankees the last couple of days. This was a dream of his.
Yeah, and so do I think that there might be a little spats with the media? Do I think he'll be a little sensitive at times if he's criticized? Sure. But it's not going to be any different than what usually happens in New York, and we'll see how he pitches. But I think the fans will be receptive to him. And I think he's got a chance to have a really good year. Now, will all those pitchers have great years? Of course, that's tough to say. But I don't think they're all going to have bad years. You know what Cole is. Stroman usually gives you a ton of innings and pitches well.
No. He doesn't. That's one thing he doesn't do. He doesn't give you a ton of innings. I mean, that's why they put the 140 in there.
But he also he had 33 starts a couple of years ago with the Mets, which led to lead.
Right.
I mean, he makes appearances, I guess is the better way to say it. That he should be able to be available every 5 days to pitch for you, and I think he's got a chance to give you more innings than Snell would, and cost a lot cheaper. And Cortez should be able to bounce back and be the pitcher that we thought that he could have been before he got hurt. I mean, everything indicates that he's still a very good pitcher.
Now, he's been a consistently above-average starter for most of his career. His ERA plus, which is, 100 would be an average ERA. His ERA plus has been no worse than 113 in any of his past 4 seasons. So that means he's been 13% above average. And the 113 was last season, which started out that it could be a career year, and then he hurt his side. But he carried a 2.28 ERA and a 5.36 opponent's OPS through his first 16 starts and made his second All-Star team. But in the second half, in July, he allowed 27 earned runs across 26 and 2/3 innings in the month, landed on the injured list April 2nd, right hip inflammation, returned to the mound with that was delayed by a right rib cartilage fracture. Once he rejoined the Cubs on September 15th, he threw just 8 innings over 4 relief appearances to close out the year. He ended with a 3.95 ERA, the second highest of his career. Now, if 3.95, Don, is the second highest of his career, that's good. Because his ERA for his career is 3.65. So, listen, if they gave him $30 million a year, it would be a head scratcher. But in this market, he's getting $18.5 million a year, and if he's a 13% above average starter, that's worth it.
No. And it's not like he doesn't have a history of giving you innings, Michael. In 2016, over 200 innings. In 2017, over 200 innings.
No, of late it's been rough.
Right. In 2019, 184 and a third. And even in 2021, Michael, with the Mets, he had 179 innings. So, the last couple of years, it's been under 140. That's probably why they have the 140 in the contract.
And 2020 sat out the COVID season. He was one who elected to not pitch.
Right. So, he does have times in his career. Granted, it was, 2016, 2017, but he has pitched over 200 innings. He's made 33 starts in 2017, 32 starts in 2019. I mean, so if he's healthy, I think he can be a bit of a bulldog. Now, is he a number 2 starter for a championship team? You would think no. But if he pitches at his best, but could Cortez come back from his injury and be a number 2 starter? Why not?
You know what? I'm one of the guys. I think I'm one of the few people. I really think Rodon's going to have a good year.
Now, he could be number 2 as well.
I mean, Rodon, the 2 years before he became a Yankee, look at his numbers. They were great. That's why I got a 6-year contract from the Yankees. And it wasn't just the Yankees that wanted him. Many, many teams were bidding for him. He had a terrible year last year. The look of him turning his back on Matt Blake was awful in the game against Pittsburgh. I admit all of that. But the guy was out the first half of the year, his first year with a team. I think he's going to have a good year. If he's healthy, I think he's going to have a really good year. You don't lose it that fast. Not at his age. You just don't. So I think they have a lot riding on him. He might be one of the most important people on the team. Because you accept Judge is going to have a big year, Cole's going to have a big year, Soto's going to have a big year. Those you accept. I think that Rizzo's going to come back. I think he's through the concussion. But the one guy that's a wild card that turns the fortune of the team is going to be Rodon. Because I don't think Nestor's a number 2. I don't think Marcus Stroman's a number 2. I think Rodon's a number 2. Nestor or Stroman is a number 3 I could live with. But if one of those guys is forced to be a number 2, then you're asking him to pitch above what they've pitched before. Right. I think Rodon can pitch what he has done before and be very important for the Yankees.
Right. But if Marcus pitches the way that he pitched, in 2017, 2016, those are numbers.
Yeah, but that's 8 years ago, bud.
No, I get it. But it's there. He can do it. But if you go back to 2021, it was 33 starts, 179 innings.
You take that. You don't even have to tell me the other stats. I'll take that.
Right, 3.02 earned run average. That's good enough to be a number 2 starter. Now, he was 10 and 13, but that tells me he was involved in 23 decisions, which means he pitched a lot of innings. He was in a lot of games. So, Listen, he's 33, right?
He's 32 now.
Yeah, he will be. I guess when's his birthday? He was 32 last year, so his birthday has to be, May 1st. So,
but it'll be 53 on Saturday.
No, I'm saying 33 for a pitch. It's not. Listen, it's not like he can't still give you good pitching over those 2 years.
That's the age of Cole, right?
Yeah.
So you're expecting great things from Garrett. Let's go to the phone, see what you're thinking. 1-800-919-3776. Let's go to Juan in the Bronx. Juan.
Hey, Michael. Hey, guys. How are you guys?
Good. How you doing?
I'm kind of, I'm glad that you kind of touched upon it, because I know that Stroman is kind of getting dragged on social media and on the airways because of his attitude and, I guess, level of maturity. But Rodon, I feel, has gotten a complete pass. I mean, this guy has proven already that he's having a little bit of a hard time getting adjusted to the New York spotlight. I mean, turning his back on the coaching staff there on that pitching mound, blowing kisses at fans and whatnot. And I feel like he's not sort of kind of been included in the bad boy persona of the New York Yankees here.
Well, I mean, because I'll tell you why, Juan. He was a Yankee for half a year. He didn't piss in the first half of the year. He's never had problems with his maturity in other spots. Marcus Stroman has had those issues before. Again, mostly social media driven, where he gets into fights with fans or reporters that aren't kind to him, but never in his clubhouse. You never hear anything bad about him in the clubhouse.
Yeah, and the other thing is, this is a quick hit here. Why do the Yankees keep having these Zooms press conferences for players? I think that we're losing out on a lot of valuable exposure for these people. I mean, I can imagine that they couldn't get obviously Soto to Yankee Stadium for his press conference, and now Stroman is getting also a Zoom call. I think we're missing out a little bit here.
Okay, so I don't know the reason why they're doing Zooms, but well, he's gone now. They're not missing out on exposure. They're covered just as if they were standing in front of you.
COVID revealed to us ways that we can do things moving forward, and it's just more convenient, I think, that now that we can do Zooms, that maybe it's more convenient for the player and for the media to try to put those things together than having a big dog and pony show and having everybody come out. Like, it probably just it works a lot better, I think, for everyone.
I think if they signed Yamamoto, it would have been a huge press conference.
Yeah, of course, because there's certain things that just beg for, where that's a press conference where maybe it used to be Warner Wolf would ask the first question. Now I guess it's Bruce Beck, where everybody comes out of the woodwork. I don't know if Stroman would be that level of signing, and it's just, I think it's a lot more convenient now for the player. I don't know where Stroman is now. Maybe he's down in Florida. I don't know. Even if he's living out in Long Island, do I want to go for that, or is it just easier to kind of just do it on Zoom? So I think that's probably it, right, Michael? It might just be more convenient for everybody. It was something we didn't think about before COVID.
Well, it's
then we started doing all these Zooms and figuring out this is probably an easier way to do it.
We just spoke to the only fan who cares about that.
And also, essentially, his main point is wrong. You're messing up any publicity. Do you read the papers? Do you see the news? I mean, a Zoom call is just as effective as having a carving board. What's the big deal?
Right, you're not going to get invited to the press conference as a fan.
Right, exactly.
All due respect.
It just there's a lot that goes into it. A lot of people have to come from all over the place, and believe me, I don't think any media member is going to complain in the middle of this cold snap where it's like 20 degrees outside, and I don't have to go to the Bronx for the dog and pony show. I can sit at home.
I'll tell you what, though, the roast beef they serve is unbelievable.
Oh, will you stop?
It is,
right?
And then they give out cookies. Like when Judge signed, they gave out cookies with his number on it. Really delightful.
I can get cookies, Michael. I don't need free cookies.
Well, you don't go to press conferences anyway.
Listen, the George Carlin had it right. Every moment we leave the house, we spend every second trying to get back home.
I think that's Jerry Seinfeld who says that.
No, it was George Carlin.
It was?
Yeah. Well, Seinfeld has the same bit.
Well, he stole it from George.
Oh, well, this is now you guys are getting into some really dangerous territory. Let's just.
But I'm comfortable. I could side with George. I'm good.
No, but I mean, you suggested because Michael might just be confused. Now Seinfeld's getting tossed.
No. I'm not confused. I've seen Jerry. He said when you go out, all you do is want to get back home.
You know what I did, Michael? I think we saw that together at the show.
Yeah.
No, he took it from Carlin. But either way. to sit home, as good as those cookies are and the roast beef to die for, Michael, if you had a chance to pop on your laptop and be able to ask a question to Stroman and not have to leave your house, you're good.
Yeah, you see, I love the aura of the stadium, so I would go there.
I'm not surprised by
because
that.
My garage is not a pigsty, and my car's in there, so I get.
But wait a minute, nobody said pigsty.
Well, you can't fit a car in there.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean it's a pigsty.
Of course it is.
You just leveled a shot.
So I would get in my car. It wouldn't be cold in the car because it's in the garage. I'd pull out. I'd pull into the garage at Yankee Stadium. I'd walk 40 feet in the cold weather, and I'd be in a beautiful Legends restaurant.
Because you're Yankee boy. Most people aren't Yankee boy. I figure, I'm good at my house. I don't have to go to the aura.
What am I lying about?
I don't know. I think you're lying.
What, the aura of a building that stood since 2009?
You know what? And it's right across the street from the other building. You just feel it. You can smell it.
But you're there 100 times
Yankee
a year.
Boy can smell it. It's like a dog whistle.
I'm not there 100 times a year. There's only 81 home games.
And then you add other things that come up here and there. Okay, you're there 90 times a year.
He's not wrong, Michael. I mean, because you've got.
I like going to work. I like the building where I work.
You like it because you're Yankee boy. It's nothing special.
It's very special.
Don't do this.
What?
Because you're going to get into a big screaming fight.
I love the aura.
But you know what? I like the aura of my house.
Oh, you know what? Derek Jeter said, a lot of things happen in this old stadium. Now we're going to bring the memories over across the street.
Jeter
That's exactly what they did.
So? Madison Square Garden's more historic than the new Yankee Stadium. It's been around since '68.
I love Madison. I love to go to Madison Square Garden.
Oh, give me a break.
I do.
And if they told Don you could call every game, we'll give you a perfect view and you can do it from your bedroom, guess what he'd do? Sit right in his bedroom and call the games. No, they said it's perfect. You're not going to lose anything. We're going to give you you'll see every single thing. We have 12 different angles. You see everything going on.
It's a bad analogy. I don't want to do that.
Well, I was trying to help out.
But if I got a chance to go to a press conference and do it from my house, because and Don, why are you here? You get it done from here. Oh, I like the aura of Madison Square Garden. You know what you would say? You're a Ranger boy.
I would say that.
All right, so I'm Yankee. I'm embracing it in the new year.
That's right. You should. Now there you go. It took a while, but there you go.
I like to have a shirt that says Yankee boy. I'm cool with it.
Well, I want you to really own it. Because I don't think I think you're lying.
Well, first of all, I've been one of the voices of the Yankees for 33 years. If you're going to call me Yankee boy, I'll embrace it. So Gary's Met boy, right?
But I've been
absolutely.
I've been telling
Is Sam
you
Rosen Ranger boy? Papa Giant boy?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They don't do shows where there's examples.
But do you think that Gary roots for the Mets?
Yes.
Oh no, Gary's.
You think that Sam roots for the Rangers?
No, Sam roots absolutely.
Okay.
But Papa, I can't call him Giant boy. I can't go into detail.
He's Giant boy now. Whatever he was as a kid, he's Giant boy now.
I'm just saying. But I'm just saying is that
Susan is Jet boy. Oh, is he Jet boy?
But I don't know if he dropped the aura of MetLife. Which is fair because they both were one's in 2010, the other's in 2009.
But one's well done, one's not.
That is true. Although I think Citi Field's better.
Oh, here we go.
Well, that's everybody thinks.
No, I don't. I think Citi Field's a nice park. Yankee Stadium's a stadium.
But so what's the difference? I'd rather go to a park than a stadium.
I like stadium. I like the grandiosity of a 50,000 seat stadium.
Well, because you like that because you're Yankee boy.
I am Yankee boy. Pinstripe underwear on right now.
He's mocking me. I'm telling him he should own this. You're not winning the Met fan over.
Peter, what do you want? Am I owning it or not?
I don't think he's lying to us.
Well, he might be, but even if he's lying about it, he's still saying that, and it's a very Yankee boy thing to say, so he's living the gimmick.
It's not a gimmick. I'm a Yankee boy. I want the Yankees to do well. Why wouldn't I?
And you like going to the stadium just for giggles on a weekday.
I love the aura.
He just loves the aura.
When you walk in the portals of Yankee Stadium and you see these life-size pictures of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Mickey Mantle and Yogi Berra and Joe DiMaggio, I'm sorry, it stirs something in me.
Wow. Every time.
Every time I go to work, I go, I can't believe this is my office.
Wow. I'll tell you a place where you don't say that.
Here.
Oh, you mean the one with the garbage in front of the elevator for the last 6 months?
That's right.
That place. Time for Inside the Numbers, brought to you by Eisner Amper. Artemi Panarin scored a 60th point last night, Don, in the Rangers' 43rd game, tied for his fewest games to hit that mark in a season, tied with himself for the second fewest by any Rangers skater in the last 50 years, behind Jaromir Jagr in 05-06. That was in 39 games. That's Inside the Numbers, brought to you by Eisner Amper, a leading business advisory firm helping clients transform their companies, build capital, innovate processes, and mitigate risk. Make Eisner Amper part of your solution. Learn more at EisnerAmper.com/solution. Don, Peter, I've changed my mind on something that I have dug in for a long time. I've dug in this for a long time.
This is not like you.
And the three of us have actually been lockstep. I'm going to walk out of lockstep. I'll tell you what when we come back.
I like it.
Driving to the new year,